The first time I ever saw Autumn, it's kind of funny, but I know she told you the same answer, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. It's always, it was always like me and my buddy's dream that some real pretty girl would come to the church, and then, because there wasn't many at the time, and so we were always like, man, maybe this will be the year that a pretty girl will come to the school or come to the church, Well, one night after church, I can't remember what it was. I think it was a Wednesday night, but I don't know why I didn't see her before church or during church, but after church, I just happened to look over and I saw two really pretty girls, and I thought, man, I've only wanted one. That was always my wish, but now there's two.
And he said to his brother Caleb, he said, did you see the new missionary family and their two daughters? And Caleb said, one's a freshman and the other is her mother.
So the first thing I did was go to my brother and I said, man, did you see those two good-looking chicks that were at church? And he's like, yeah, one of them's like 15 and the other one's her mom. So I was pretty disappointed in that.
So he thought me and my mom were attractive, which is kind of creepy. But anyways, that's, I guess, technically the first time that we ever met. But the first time we ever spoke that I ever remember is I had just got my permit, and he's a state trooper. And I was driving in the parking lot at church to get my parents, and he was just happened to be walking out.
I was trying to lay a little groundwork for the future, and I saw her driving, and so I went up to her and I said, I can write you a ticket since you don't have a driver's license. And I can't remember, she said something smart. I looked at me, I don't really remember what it was.
And I said, yeah, right, and I kept driving.
One time, I guess it was about a year and a half ago, my mom just happened to was talking to her and about that I saw Autumn or something, and my mom just mentioned to me that Autumn wasn't going back to school, back to college, and when she said that really piqued my interest, and I thought, well, that means she'll be around here, I guess. And so I started really thinking about asking her out, trying to get up the nerve to ask her on a date.
Our first date was on Valentine's Day.
That was not planned, but it worked out nice that it was on Valentine's Day. So that way I can always remember it. It was kind of like a scramble because it's wintertime and there's not much to do in the wintertime.
But he came and picked me up at 6, and we went to Aragato's and we saw a movie. He was cliche.
The best thing I come up with was a movie, and there was actually like a chick flick love story movie.
The Vow.
Yeah, and I was like thinking we could watch that. I was trying to subtly put that in, but then she's like, yeah, I've already watched The Vow, so
can we see Safe House?
Safe House. And I was like, that's a good sign, because she likes action movies.
I was also told by his father that if he didn't ask me out on the second date, not to be offended, that he just didn't date people more than once if he didn't like them.
I said, would you be mad if I told you something?
And I said, I don't think so.
And then I said,
okay, well then I love you.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well then I love you too.
So that was the first time. I think we'd been dating like a month and a half.
We'd only been dating for like, I guess, 3 or 4 months when I started being like, okay, so when are you gonna ask me? And I'm sure I annoyed him all the time about it, but we'd gone and looked at rings, and I knew that he hadn't bought one. Like, I was just sure, and I knew he hadn't talked to my dad. So we went to New York with my family.
The best plan would be to meet a fly up. They would do some kind of distraction with her, and not let her know that I was coming. And we planned out that we'd meet on the top of the Rock, which is the Rockefeller building there in New York.
When we went, I had like a top 5 list of things I wanted to do. And on that list was I wanted to go to the top of the Rock, which is the Rockefeller Center. And I wanted to go there so I could see the whole city. So I get up that morning, and we had made an appointment to go at 10 or 11. And my mom's like, you need to get like dressed up because we're going to take a family picture up there.
I would already be up there waiting on him to get there, and then once they got up there, then that's when I would propose.
And I talked to Josh the night before, after I got out of the Broadway show. I was like, he was like, I'm going to bed because I got to get up early. And I knew he didn't have to work the next day, so I was so confused. But none of this, like, I had no idea.
Of course, you know, I thought I wasn't going to be nervous. I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal. But about halfway to New York City on the plane ride, I was reading a book and it just hit me. And I thought, man, I'm getting ready to get engaged. And so from that point on, I was super nervous.
So we go to the top of the rock.
I get up there and I found the spot that I thought would be a good spot to propose to her. And finally, I'm sitting there. It seemed like I was up there for a couple hours, but I probably went up there for about 30 minutes or so. And finally, I see Susie come up the escalator, and Susie looks right at me. I was off to the right.
And I am just so excited about it because I love New York City, and I'd always wanted to go, and I'd always wanted to go up there. And Mom's like, "Can I have your camera?" And I was like, no. And she's like, "Oh, I'll get pictures of you." And I was like, well, okay, I guess that'll be cool to get pictures of me like in front of the city. So I get up there and I'm just like mesmerized, just staring at everything. And apparently he was behind me for like 2 or 3 minutes, and I just am just so, he tapped on my shoulder, and
I actually tapped her on the shoulder, and she just continued to look straight ahead and didn't even, I thought, man, she's not even going to turn around.
I just turned enough to where I couldn't see him still. And finally, I turn around and I just scream, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" And I guess I still didn't realize what he was doing there.
I took her off to the side because a big crowd had gathered, and it made me even more nervous than what I was. I couldn't hardly talk. And so we walked off to the side, and I got down on my knee and proposed to her, and she said yes before I could hardly finish.
And he gets down on one knee, and like, he just asks really quick, like he doesn't really say anything. He just says, "Will you marry me?" And I was just like, yes! And I was just so excited that he finally asked. And so I got up and I hugged him, and he just said all these sweet things when he was hugging me.
And then we high-fived. And
I guess my first thought was, well, I need to give him a high five. So I did. I high-fived him, and that was just, I guess the epitome of our relationship is that we high-fived after we got proposed instead of like what normal people do.
Me and my brother, we always had this thing where whenever there was a pretty girl, we would say, "She's an Italian supermodel." And
this is your favorite thing?
my favorite thing, one of my favorite things is that I got an Italian supermodel, and I'll be marrying an Italian supermodel.
But my favorite memory was her last basketball game. We figured it was the last game. They were in a playoff game. They had made a good run in the playoffs, and just maybe less than a minute left in the game. And I think we were down probably around 10 points, maybe a little bit more. Everybody pretty much knew that the game was out of hand. And Autumn was playing like a possessed woman, as she usually did. And I remember her taking a couple foul shots towards the end of the game, and realizing, no doubt she did, that it was over, and it quite possibly could have been her last game. And she was shooting a foul shot, and she looked up at me at the stands, and I just remember, wanting to tell her, just finish strong. And when all the other girls seemed to be maybe, packing things in, and she did that. And I realized, I just had this sense that, a chapter was closing, and probably that book would be closed, never to be opened again. I just had that sense, and I was so thrilled that what a chapter it was, and what a finish it was. And this chapter is a new one, and more exciting, and much better. I'm looking forward to this new one.
I remember the summer that you were going to go to Pensacola, and me and you went fishing over Blues Creek, and about halfway through it, we remembered, or it dawned on us, that you didn't have a fishing license. I had one, and we got a little panicked over that. I remember the time that we went to somebody got us a couple of tickets to the Carolina basketball game. One of the first ones I guess we probably ever went to, and we didn't get to stay for the whole game because we had to come back to church. And how I remember it kind of hurt me to tell you that, but it also was a blessing because we had to leave early because had to get back to church, and you had a good attitude and good spirit about it, and you was in agreement with that, and I really appreciated that. And then I remember the time that me and you were able to go to the it was ACC tournament. It was one of those rinky-dink ball games. But anyway, we got to go there, and we got to go early, and we won some prizes because the things that we did. Won a T-shirt for shooting free throws and stuff like that. So all those times were really special to me. And then I also enjoy the times that we, whenever we get together and we can, when Mom's not around, we can wrestle and stuff. Even though most of the time I beat you, I know you probably don't enjoy it as much as I do.
I remember we were at church at Calvary Baptist, and I don't remember what service it was, whether it was a Sunday morning, Sunday night. But I remember sitting in our normal seat where we used to sit at that time and looking over and seeing a tall, handsome young man and thinking to myself, oh boy. I kind of had the thought of maybe when you're on a roller coaster and you're climbing the big hill and you've kind of got nervous and apprehensive, but yet at the same time excited about what's going to happen. And I just had the sense that I knew where this thing was going. And I come home that night and I talked to Susie about it. And she said, I had the same thought, and we pretty much had a good idea of where we were headed. But you know what? We couldn't be prouder. And we've grown to know and love Josh, and we thank God for him, and we know it's the Lord's will for Autumn and Josh to be together.
When I think about Autumn as a little girl, I always remember her when we were in our little apartment in Germany, and her hair was just starting to come in. She was about 2.5. And she had just switched to a toddler bed instead of a crib because we had just moved to a new apartment. And Ronnie and I, our room was right across the hall, and of course Ronnie would get up and go to work. And when he went to work, he would leave me sleeping, and it was inevitable. He must have heard her. She must have heard him shut the door and go out, because she would creep into my room and you could hear her little feet as she came across the floor, and then the next thing you knew, you were nose to nose with her, and all that little blonde hair just in wispies falling down in front of her face, and she was just all grins. I mean, that was like the best thing in the world.
It's like 11 maybe, or 12, and we were at the mall, and I don't know why it was just me and him, because we always had other children with us, and he was holding my hand. And I thought, I couldn't believe he was holding my hand in public, in the mall. And he just wanted to hold my hand. He held my hand all through the mall. And I thought, this is a special memory for me. And he never did anything like that again, but he's always been sweet. He's always been loving. And he's always told me he loved me and that I was special to him. And that's really special when you're a mom of a son. And I've always thought, who will he marry? Because he just wouldn't. We would try to introduce him to girls. He wasn't interested, and he kept saying, "Mom, God's got somebody for me."
One of the funniest memories I have of Autumn and the whole idea of boys and dating was we were. She was probably about 12, and she had a little boy had wanted to give her a stuffed animal Valentine's Day. So I knew it had begun. I knew that, the whole dating thing was starting to enter her mind and boys. And so I gave her a book about dating and talked to her about how, I wanted her to save her heart because God had somebody special and that we've been praying for whoever it was all these years. And well, one day I went into her room and she was just bawling her eyes out. I mean, just crying like sobs. And I was like, Autumn, what's wrong? And she said, I can't help it. And I said, you can't help what? What's wrong? And I was like thinking all these horrible things. And she goes, I really like boys.
My best advice, and I thought about this, and to me, this is probably one of the most important things that I could ever say to you, and say for you, and that is that the best advice I can give you is to love God with all your heart. And if you'll build your house around God, the Bible tells us that, they that labor in vain, except God build a house, they labor in vain. In other words, all your work and effort is going to be in vain if God's not the center of everything that you do. And I promise you, if you will put God first and build your life around God, then you'll be the best husband that you can be. And you'll be the man that you need to be at your home, at your house. And Autumn will be able to love you more if you will be the man of God that you should be. And if you'll do that, God will bless you. And if you get God to bless you, then there's not another thing upon the face of this earth that's going to help you anymore than to have God's blessings on your home, your house, and your marriage. And I'll tell you, that is one of the greatest things that you'll ever do. And I want you to know we love you. Autumn, we love you too. And I'm very proud of you, for both of you, and very happy for your choice for each other. And of course, my prayer is that you'll be the good, godly Christian example that we know that you can be and should be.